Ayar, Children of the Sun, is the third in a trilogy from Osprey Games. It follows Merv and Sankoré. Children of the Sun is all about the origins of the Incan Empire, and players are going to be playing on 4 tracks trying to earn 2 different kinds of victory points. This is a game for between 1 and 4 players. Games take 60 to 90 minutes to play, although the teaching time is not insignificant. And this is a game that works for people aged 14 and up. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald. This is Brains on Games. Let's take a deeper look at Ayar, Children of the Sun. Ayar is releasing very soon. It's coming direct to retail, and this is a medium weight game in terms of its complexity. It took me a couple of playthroughs because there are some unique things about this game. So I would say medium complexity. There is, like I said earlier, not an insignificant teaching time involved in learning this game. What you're trying to do is earn the most points. You're going to win this game by earning the most points, but you're earning sun points and moon points as you play through the game, and only the lower of the 2 will count. The game uses some Incan terms to describe the pieces and the actions that you're taking, but we did develop nicknames along the way just to make it easier for everyone around the table to keep things straight and to teach new players this one. So if you hear me using terms that aren't the same as the ones in the rulebook, that is the reason why. For example, these little houses are called Tambo, but we call them houses every single time. Over 4 rounds, you're going to use these screen printed 2-colored standees to move these Ayar across their 4 tracks. There are scoring opportunities along the way that you're going to run into, and each action is also upgrading the powers here on your player board. You're sort of playing almost 4 mini games here. You're planting corn, and planting the most corn in a round is going to allow you to gain a special reward. You're bundling these reeds, and that's going to allow you to place these islands on the board, which is going to earn you some points and some rewards as well. You're weaving, and that's going to allow you to build a puzzle on your board. You're trying to build suns and fill columns there. You're going to earn some rewards for doing that. And then finally, there's pottery, and you're trying to collect sets of pottery in order to maximize your points. When I say sets, the pots do have different colors on them, and so you're collecting pots with different colored backgrounds. On the first turn, these movement tokens are going to be placed off to the side. Now, I've put them in the weaving section of my board just because I don't really have enough space. But on the first turn, your board here, your movement board is blank. You're going to place one of these figures on the board, and that's going to allow you to move the Ayar of that color. There is a 5th color, the gold one, and that's a wild card. It allows you to move any Ayar that you want. Most spaces on your board will allow the Ayar to move 1 space on their track. There are a couple of spaces here and here that allow the Ayar to move 2 spaces instead. So you place your figure. You move the Ayar 1 space, you take your house or Tambo off the board, and now I'm going to be able to take an action. A 1 power action, because I only have 1 symbol in this column where I've placed my movement piece. That will allow me, for example, to take one of my cubes here, and I'm planting corn on the terrace. If my turn comes around again and I decide to move the teal Ayar, well, any Ayar at all, but I put my movement piece here in this row, I'm going to be taking one of these Tambo, any one along the row, but now I have a 2 power action that I can take. So we'll move my Ayar 1, and maybe I'm going to move my boat to gather some reeds this time, and this is a 2 power action, which means I can move my boat 2 spaces, so I'm getting closer to being able to place one of these islands on the board. Once all of the workers have been placed, then night falls. This is the day phase that we've been talking about. Night falls, one of these Ayar is going to retire and be removed from the board, which means you can no longer move along that track, and all the scoring opportunities that Ayar would have crossed along the way are lost to the players. These scoring positions on the board are randomly assigned at the start of the game. There are groups of A's and B's, so that ensures that things are spread out in a particular way. But each scoring space on the track has an opportunity for 2 Ayar to score it, But of course, each round you're losing one of those Ayar until the end of the game when there's only one left. So you've got the mini games and the puzzles that you're playing on the player board. You've got the race here for the corn or the maze, and the reed bundling where you're trying to place those islands and get as high up as you can. You're placing temples over here in order to score some extra moon points during the night phase of the game. But you're also puzzling out how to make sure that the spaces that you want to score are going to give you the maximum benefit at the time when they're getting scored. And that might mean that you're trying to make sure that the IR that you want to move forward will not wind up retiring too early for you. Let's take a look at a turn of Ayar Children of the Sun, and then we'll talk a little bit about skills.
My last move will be here. Oh, so this guy moves over here, so there's going to be scoring there, and there's a nice little river all the way down there.
So now you're gonna
So I have a movement of 5.
So
It's
you get
really,
that.
I'm stopped at 4 anyway, so.
Nice. So you unlock that golden.
Pretty sure you just gave Dennis 5 sons.
It's okay.
It was happening.
Well, it had to happen. It had to happen.
regardless, so.
I'm just saying that's what he gets. And
Corn
You're
ice.
gonna get what you're gonna get.
5 sons and a llama.
5 sons and a llama.
That's good. So I'm up to
Nobody
7.
else is in the...
No.
I mean, I have 1 son. Oh, I guess I get 1 son.
Well, there you go. 1 is
Sweet.
better than 0 sons.
Pass me a llama, Uncle Brian. I want the 5.
I'll give you a llama. What skills, though, are you practicing when you play a game like Ayar Children of the Sun? This is a game that does involve a significant amount of planning. You really have to think ahead because the timing here is so important based on when those IR are going to retire. Are they going to hit the scoring spaces that you've been building up on your board? Are they going to hit those scoring spaces at a time when you're going to get the maximum benefit? We had some turns where one player moved an IR ahead 2 spaces just to purposely score this thing before the next player could complete their maze board or could finish their final island here on the reed bundling track. So it's a game where you're thinking about the timing and you're also really doing some spatial planning here to make sure that the piece that you want to remain on the board sticks around as long as possible. That does involve some working memory too, because you do need to track a lot of information. Working memory is the whiteboard in your mind where you keep information so that you can work with it somehow. And because you're tracking the locations of the IR, which players' movement pieces are remaining, did they save this wild one that's going to allow them to become kind of like a kingmaker and move an IR forward, one that you didn't expect? There's so much that you're tracking here, along with the fact that you've got these 4 different mini games that you're playing on your player board, and you want to take advantage of those scoring spaces when they do get scored. Final thoughts about Ayar Children of the Sun. This is another game from Osprey Games, and I haven't played anything by them that I didn't really like. I wasn't familiar with the previous games in the trilogy. I mean, I knew of their existence and they generated a lot of buzz when they came out. This is the first one of those that I've played, and it's so unique. You know, I've never played a game like this where, I mean, I have played games where you're upgrading your player board by taking actions on different tracks, but I've never played one where you really have to keep track so much of the timing and making sure that you're going to be able to score that action that you've been working on through the entire game. So it is quite unique in that way, and there's a lot of things to balance. It's a game where each time we played, all of the players said, I messed up this part, or I wish I would have done this differently. There was always some mistake where we said at the end, you know, okay, now I know what I want to do next time. So we're always thinking about the next time. We enjoyed playing this thing, and it left us hungry for more, I would say. The components and the art style and the color scheme, I really liked all of those things. Maybe except that it was a little hard for us as the players to kind of name the colors. Some were saying more of a rust color than a brown, and some were we had different names, I guess, for the colors of the different pieces. That doesn't really matter. It was just a real joy to play. It's not a super long game. You feel like it's going to be long at the beginning, but because you're retiring that IR piece, each round you have one fewer action that you're going to be able to take, and then in the final round you're only able to do two things. So that's another planning thing that has to happen as you're playing through the game. You've got to think about, okay, if I only have two actions left, what do I need to do? What do I need to finish before this game ends? So lots of real puzzly things happening. And unlike some of these kinds of games where you're working on your own player board, it's definitely not multiplayer solitaire once you include the fact that you're really manipulating the positions of these IR on the board in order to determine who's going to retire when, and that really can mess with the player's plans if the piece that they're working on winds up retiring too early. There is a solo mode, which I always like. I mean, I don't play these games solo, but I always appreciate when something like that is included in a game like this for those who do. You've got the randomization here of these scoring tiles, and that's something too that adds to the replayability. You can't just focus every single time maybe on the same pathway to victory. And there are multiple ways that you can earn points in this game. So you can decide, I want to focus on weaving, for example, and that was kind of fun to build that puzzle and try to get as many suns as you could on your board. It's just a really, I think, a really nice combination of mechanisms that is brain burning enough on your turn without being sort of so complicated that you're going to sit for 20 minutes trying to figure out what you should do on your turn. Now, that being said, it is kind of unforgiving when it comes to mistakes. What happened in our games was that we all made mistakes each time we played. Nobody played through and said, that was perfect. I did exactly what I needed to do every single turn, and everything I wanted to do is maximize now. It never worked that way. I mean, if I'm an experienced player and I'm teaching someone new the game, it's going to be hard for them to compete against me because I understand the mechanisms a little bit better. It took me a couple of games just to grasp all the things that were going on and the importance of the timing, along with, well, how hard is it to get sun points versus moon points because you're only scoring the lowest one. Which are you going to work on, or how do you keep those things balanced? It's a real challenge with a real learning curve. Now, for some players that might be intimidating, but as soon as we played through a round, even players who really prefer lighter games, as soon as we played through a round, they were like, okay, I mean, I don't really know how I'm going to win this game, but I understand how it's played, which is good, I think. So that's kind of a good balance. You've got deep strategy, I think excellent replayability because there are so many things that you're working on and you're perfecting your plays of the game. You've got the randomization, which adds to that. There's a little bit of randomization on the player boards in terms of where the rewards are placed. So each of the player boards is a little bit different, but not significantly so. There are no asymmetric powers there. So a bit of a long teach, a bit intimidating maybe during the teach. I know that was the case for some of our players, but once we played around, it really clicked into place and we understood what it was that we were trying to do. The mistakes that we were making were never rules mistakes. It was always strategic mistakes, and that I think is a good thing. It's not a misunderstanding of the rules. The rules made sense to us, so it certainly wasn't that. But it is a game where just grasping that timing is something that's a little complicated. The last thing maybe as a downside I would say about Children of the Sun is that it's the setup time is something that's not insignificant either. It's not a dexterity game, but you've got great big stacks of these pots that you have to pile up, and then there's little spaces for very tall stacks of these little tiny weaving mats that you're going to be putting on your board. Plus each of the players has all of those cubes and their tambo and the other things that have to be placed. You know, it probably took me, well, I won't say an hour to set everything up, but it took a while to get everything set up. And because the teach time is a little long, and I'm glad I had it set up before everyone came to play this game, because then we could get right into the teach. And it took us I think our first game, it was a little long because we were getting used to it. We were playing at 4 players, and we played for 2 hours. Once the teach was done, it was about 2 hours to play through. But the second time I played it was much faster. So we really, I think that 90-minute time limit might be a little bit optimistic, but you can get there if all the players are familiar with the game. But that does not include setup time. It's going to be 2 hours at least once you include the setup. Thankfully, the organizer in the box is great. So everything, once you've put it away, if you put it away correctly, it at least makes it a little bit easier to set everything up. Everything fits in the box, and the box closes too, and that's always a good thing. One final downside about Ayar Children of the Sun, and that is I think this is one that plays best at larger player counts. I mean, it has solo rules. You can play it 2, 3, or 4 players. 4 players, this thing sings. And the reason for that is the things you're doing on your board here are fun, but really it's this main board where you're manipulating the position of those Ayar, and you're trying to either force a tile to be scored before your opponents are ready, or to force an Ayar to retire when the other players wanted him to stick around. That is really the meat of the game and what makes it the most fun and what makes the timing the most tricky. And at 2 players, there's not as much of that. And so I think 4 players is where this thing really stands out as a real winner, a fantastic game, because this was where we were staring at and having the most fun. I mean, eventually you get sometimes you'll have so many of those spaces filled up that maybe you wanted to get pottery on that turn, but the Ayar that you wanted to move doesn't have an open pottery action on that track. So more players is better with Ayar Children of the Sun, but with 4 players, this thing is just a fantastic, and at least in terms of the games that I've played, it's such a unique experience to play it. We loved this game. And it's one that, as I said, we all wanted to play again immediately to try some new trick or to fix some mistake that we made in the previous playthrough. So thanks so much to the folks at Osprey for sending Ayar Children of the Sun my way. This is one that releases very soon. I think next week, once this video is posted, we're about a week out or a few days out. So it does release very soon. I would say definitely check this out if medium weight Euros are sort of in your wheelhouse. So thanks again to Osprey for sending this one my way. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them, of course, in the comments section below the video. You can email me at brian@brainsongames.ca. Brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where future episodes will go. Previous ones are already up there. Brains on Games is the X handle and the Facebook page and the Instagram feed and the Blue Sky page. We're all over the place. And if you enjoyed this video, you want to be notified of future ones, you can head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.